When we talk about India and the wicket, the pitches, what comes to your mind first?
Spinning them.
Spin. And there's absolutely no doubt about in anyone's mind that Indian wickets, they perform differently. Now, whether it is because of pitches that we produce many great spin bowlers, or the or because we had the spin bowlers, we tried and made wickets like that, something which we can ponder. But today we see spin has its own values everywhere. You have Nathan Lyon, who himself is a fantastic spin bowler, and we cannot forget Shane Warne, who is an absolute magician with the ball. The good thing is today there's value for everything. The fast bowlers, the spinners, and everyone has their own place under the sun. When you come to India, of course, the first thing on every cricketer's mind is how to play either the spinners or how to perform on these wickets, these pitches which aid the spinners. One thing which I would like to share with you is this, that we have, from the inception, we have understood the science of spin, because some of the greats were highly educated. I must mention Erapalli Prasanna, who Australians especially called him the world's best ever as an off spinner. He was absolute magician with the ball, and he was a qualified and highly educated engineer. He could analyze what's going on, what happens with the ball, what the seam does, and what the shine does, and what the lack of shine does on a cricket ball. So by virtue of having understood that concept, he could share his knowledge and the information with the others like Bishan Singh Bedi, and then we had Rajendra Singh Goyal, and there are so many great, Venkat Raghavan himself an engineer. So they are all highly educated spin bowlers. So with that educational background and the information knowledge deciphered through their experience, they could understand what exactly spin bowling is. Most often it happens that everyone thinks spin bowling is assessed by amount of turn you get. And I was pleasantly surprised, rather shocked, when I had I was in a meeting where Bishan Singh Bedi was delivering a lecture in which he said the art and skill of spin bowling, or the spin bowler's skill, is measured by how he manipulates. On a turning track, you should be able to bowl straight. On a turning track, you should learn how to bowl straight, because what does the batsman do? He's anticipating, he's expecting the ball to turn usually, but this time it deceives him by not turning. So it's about how we use the cricket ball. The seam on this ball was just made, not designed to spin or swing or whatever, but it was just made to keep the two halves of the ball together. It's later, in due course, that it was discovered that the seam can do a lot of things which could be beneficial to the bowlers. Today you see in the T20s, so many runs being scored, but it's something which we cannot prove, but I still feel if we had the skills of bowlers of that era, the Prasannas and the Bishan Singh Bedis, we would still have a lot of wickets coming instead of the sixes happening. So, it's not just the turn that matters. It's not just the turn that dictates how good a spinner you are, but there are so many other factors which the batter as well as the spinner should learn and know. Now the first thing is, of course, when you say spin bowler, there are different kinds of spins, finger spin and the wrist spin. Our primary job is to actually spin the ball. There have to be revolutions in the ball. Now how you get that is the skill that we learn, and it's a learnable skill, to be honest. So spin is the first thing. The revolutions in the ball is the first thing that we need to practice. Everything else can follow. And then the virtues of flight. Science suggests that when any object is crossing the eye line, for a microsecond or a nanosecond, you lose sight of that. Now, if a good spinner bowling to a tallish batsman is flighting the ball, the batsman tends to lose it twice. Once in the ascendancy and the second time while the ball is dropping. So the batter, no matter how skillful, he is lost sight for 2 nanoseconds. One while upward motion and then when it's coming down. So that is about the flight and the subtlety of the flight. There can be so many trajectories, so many variations in the flight itself. It could be a little higher, it could be flatter, it could be lower, it could be whatever. And then of course, the next is the drift. Now drift is a big challenge. It cannot happen, no power on earth can make the ball drift unless and until there are humongous amount of revolutions. The revolutions is what makes the ball drift. I hope you understand what the drift means. Shane Warne, of course, is so good, he was a great artist. When he bowls a leg spinner, he would drift down the leg side, pitch, turn and come towards the stumps. Now that was great. An off spinner, when you spin the ball, this time the drift is away from the off, pitches and comes in. Why does it happen, and is there a pattern, is there a method in this? Certainly there is. This is what is called as the Magnus effect, which was discovered in World War II when the artillery that was fired, the ammunition that was fired was missing the target just by a few inches. They put a lot of scientists onto the job and said, when a bullet is fired from a gun, why is it drifting away? Why is it not hitting the target? They realized that the bullet is not traveling straight, it's spinning. As it leaves the barrel, it's spinning, and that revolution is creating an imbalance in the air. So this time, let's take the example of an off spinner. When the ball is revolving from my left to the right as an off spinner, there's a lot of wind that is being displaced from behind to here. So this ball is being pushed by the force of the wind. The spin is creating the wind and that is being forced. There is a low pressure area on this side and the ball drifts. Exactly similar to how a reverse swing happens. So the revolutions on the ball is what is creating this drift. Exactly the same way the bullets were being, missing the target. Who found it? There was a scientist called Magnus. It was Magnus who found that when there's a revolution, there's displacement of the wind, and that propels the ball against the spin. So Shane Warne bowling a leg spin, when the revolution is from right to the left, the ball drifts to the right. Likewise, an off spinner, right arm off spinner, when he's spinning the ball from left to the right, the ball is now drifting to the left. Now this drift is something which drags the batsman out. Now these are the skills that you don't see too often in the current, in the modern day cricket. We are only darting the ball, we're pushing the ball, we are trying to turn the ball, which in other words could just be a break. There's a difference between off break and off spin. Leg break and leg spin. You can turn the ball a lot by even hitting the deck in a particular fashion. But if you do it with the spin, it's then that you're going to get the best effect. So, drift is something which we all need to try and learn, because that is something which the batsman, you're forcing the batsman to play the wrong line, and then the ball suddenly turns and comes in. That could be really, really lethal. And then of course, after the spin, flight and the drift, the ball dips. What really happens in this, when the ball leaves the bowler's hand, there's humongous amount of revolutions, but as it is traveling through the air, the revolutions exhaust themselves. So the ball is not able to propel itself. So what happens there is it starts dropping. The batsman is thinking that it's pitching there, it's a drivable ball, but then it drops a few inches or maybe even a foot shorter. Why does it happen? Once again, it's the revolution that makes it happen. Mehdi, can you just come here, please? Now if I just chuck a ball like this, it has an even trajectory and it goes there. But then if I spin the ball, what happens? We had to struggle and go down there to grab the ball. So with the spin, the ball could behave so differently. Whereas if I'm just pushing the ball, it's a normal trajectory and it goes into his lap. So spin, 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 whatever we do, we are spinners. If you're a spinner, you call yourself a spinner. The primary objective should be to spin the ball, and the harder and faster you spin the ball, I think you get that many better results. And then, that's about the dip. There's something called the loop, which has been wrongly understood. There is a loop which we all discuss about, the loopy one. That is what is visible. But there is something else. Now, I hope you will understand when I explain this. A ball that is spinning, when it hits the surface, it's not going to be a ping pong ball that is going to just jump off. It's spinning. So it takes a bit of the pitch, right? So if you start, let's say, I'll show you the red and white. If it dips here, it's going to, because it's gripping, because it is spinning, it cannot just land there and pop off. So it spins. When you could see the white here, by the time it leaves the ground, the red is in front. So what happened there? What do you think will be the effect of this? Will it take less time or more time? It takes a little longer. So you would play a little earlier, and that is what the bowler wants. That's what the fielding team wants. They want you to play the ball just that little bit earlier. And it's a nanosecond, but then it has its own effect. Imagine you're putting all these together, the drift, the dip, the flight, the spin, the turn, and then you can imagine what the batsman has to deal with. It's a big challenge. So it's not just the turn or the break, but all these things put together that will make you a lethal spin bowler. Graham Swan, fantastic bowler. Nathan Lyon, absolutely brilliant. It's not for nothing that he's got more than 500 wickets. They have understood this concept. They spin the ball hard. And then, of course, there's the last one, which is difficult to negotiate for most batsmen, is the bounce. If you've got the revolutions and you have got the nip there, the ball bounces a little bit more than normal. So we need to try and practice how, first of all, how to spin the ball hard. The more revolutions you have, the better chance of you trying and developing all these qualities. What are the qualities we spoke about? We spoke about the flight, the drift, the dip, the turn, the bounce, all this put together, and then you add some variations on that. Humongous number of variations I introduced these days. You can see the doosra and whatnot. And everything, the entire thing, no matter what you're doing, is based on how the seam behaves. Now, for the doosra, what's the bowler doing? They're using the thumb and changing the direction of the seam. I hope you understand this. An off spinner bowling this way. Now, he's using his thumb, and as the ball leaves the hand, what's happening to the seam? It's going the other way. That's the reason why, as a batting coach, I would say, your best thing to do would be to read the seam, not just see the ball. Seeing the ball, everyone does. Reading the seam, whether you're playing fast bowlers or spin bowlers, whatever, top spinner, doosra, the one that's coming in, the one that's leaving you, everything can be read by how the seam is holding its shape. If it's straight, there's no way that the ball can turn. When you can see the ball spinning on its axis with a straight upright seam, you play for the straighter one. That's why I wanted the batters also to be here, so that they can understand the concept of what happens with the revolutions in the spin bowling. Why are spin bowlers so effective? Kuldeep Yadav, so many tricks he does. What does he do? He's viciously spinning the ball, and he's very clever. He knows how to disguise it. Right? Ashwin, master of all variations. You don't know what's coming next. So the bowlers, the spin bowlers, have this huge, humongous advantage. So I hope this interests you, and you have to go to work. It doesn't come overnight, but understanding could happen just in this hall. You could understand the concept right away, and then go for it and train. What do we do with training? How do we train our spinners? First thing, you can just use your wrist and fingers to spin the ball. Then we have introduced some devices. We have a ball on the handle, which helps you condition your wrist and fingers to spin the ball as viciously as you can. And then we use the red and white ball, which gives us an idea of how the seam is holding its place, or the direction. We have a clothesline or maybe a bar over which our bowlers spin the ball. Leg spinner, off spinner, left arm spinner. We spin the ball up. There's no point in just darting the ball through and hoping that it'll turn and get through between bat and pad. It might, but most often it doesn't. So we need to learn these skills by conditioning our wrist and fingers. The wrist and fingers are critically important. So we need to train them. You cannot hope that it will happen one fine day. But these have to be trained, and everybody can learn them. Each one of you can learn them. So when we go down there, you could do a few of these drills that we do with our boys. Use the red and white ball. We have a ball on the handle which you learn how to spin, how to manage the direction of the seam. A lot of things that we can do with that. And then we also train to strengthen our wrist and fingers, because you have to go long spells. So what do? There is on a band, on a power band, you have a ball there where you try and spin whichever way. If you're a leg spinner, you bowl anti-clockwise, off spinner clockwise. Just that, drills and drills and drills, and then you start bowling steadily. That is the helpful man. Here we have the little thing on the handle. Now, me being an off spinner, I would like to first show what off spin is all about. We do this and train our wrist and fingers to really, rip the ball, rip it across, alright? And if it's a leg spinner, we'll go this with the palm facing the batter, right? The left arm spinner. And this same thing could be used for fast bowlers as well. So there's so much that can happen on this little ball on the handle, the revolution ball. Likewise, we will give you a little demonstration of how you can spin the ball up over the bar over there. Alright? So if there are any questions about spin bowling, I'm happy to answer. Any questions, any gray areas, I'm happy to answer.
What line do you think spinners should bowl?
Good question. Now, about the line and length, Erapalli Prasanna famously said, it's like salt and pepper. Length is like salt. Little more or less, the taste is going to be bad and it's not eatable. Alright? But line is like pepper. Some like it more spicy, some like it a little lighter. So you can vary the line, but the length is consistent. The lengths have to be good. Now, what line is the question from Tom? It depends on the surface and it depends on what ball you're bowling. The skillful bowlers, they bowl close to the off stump, and if it's turning a lot, they might even go a little wider. But the best one, for let's say talking about an off spinner, the best line is to bowl fifth stump and bring the ball in. If you can bowl fourth and fifth and take both ways, sometimes you're taking it away or bringing it in, I think that will be very, very useful. Now, what kind of fields do you have for this is critically important. It depends on the surface, it depends on the number of revolutions you have in the ball, and also how much of turn you're getting on that wicket. If the turn is less, then you get closer to the off stump. You might even be bowling off and middle when the ball is not turning, if there's enough dip. Now, everybody talks about the assistance that you get from the surface. But what about the assistance that you can create for yourself through the air, through your own efforts of spinning and spinning the ball viciously? The ball is doing, from what I just mentioned, there's only one thing off the wicket, rather two, the bounce and the turn. Whereas there's lots that can happen in the air. There's so much that's happening, the flight, the drift, all these things, the loop, all that is happening in the air. So you don't have to be entirely dependent on the wicket alone. It could be your skill as well. No matter what surface, you could still be an effective, very effective spin bowler. Off spinner's line, like I said, it's anyway from the fifth stump to maybe the off and middle. But for the left arm spinners, leg spinners, it's good to pitch leg and hit off. Pitching leg and hitting off would be the most attacking line. But of course, there are variations to every kind of surface or the situation. You might want the batsman to play and miss, or maybe you want to get him stumped by taking the ball away. So at that juncture, if you have good slip cotton and you're trying to get him out there, the leg spinner, left arm spinner could also pitch off in middle and take the ball away from the right-handers. So this is just about the line. Is there anything else on your mind, Tom?
Just maybe like speed. Like Peter was talking to Mikey yesterday about how these days spinners are spelling so fast, but Cameron Boyce in the Big Bash actually went really slow and had a lot of success. What are you seeing with Indian spinners?
I completely endorse this idea. Use those speeds. That's something which my mistake. I should have mentioned that. If there's one bowler who comes to my mind quickly is Chahar. Leg spinner, not a big turner of the ball, but then his variation in speed through the air and off the wicket is absolutely wonderful. When the batsman is, most often the T20 is predetermined hitting. When the ball is arriving a little earlier or a little later, that could make a huge difference. So the use of speed through the air and off the wicket is very, very useful, and I think we all need to train on that. It is a definite tool that, the variation in speed, that could be really, really effective.
Any other questions, guys? Playing spin?
Any batter has a question? Okay. I will volunteer an answer. Now, when we coach batters here playing against spin, there are lots of them who come from all over the world, and they would like to know how to play the spin. Now, the general requirement is how to play a left arm spinner or a leg spinner. Now, left arm spinner and leg spinner, we don't play the line. You have to anticipate or guess that the ball is going to turn. So you play for the spin and turn. Because if you play for the line, the ball leaves you even just a little bit, then you'll be chasing the ball. The chances are you might edge that ball. Whereas if you're playing for the line and it doesn't even turn, then it's easier to bring your hand down and cover the line. If at all, there's going to be an inside edge which is going to hit your pad, which is fine. So don't ever play the line for left arm spinners or leg spinners, especially those who are turning the ball viciously. Try and play them for the turn and spin. Whereas when you're playing an off-spin bowler or anyone who's bringing the ball in, don't play for the turn, play for the line. If the ball turns, you can quickly draw your hands closer to your body, which is so much more easier. It's similar to a close-in fielder. They're always staying low because going down is difficult than going up. So they can spring up easily. Just the same way, the hand coming in closer to your body is so much more easier than to chase the ball which is going away from you. So left arm spinner, leg spinners, ball going away from you, don't play for the line, play for the spin and turn. Off spinners, anyone bringing the ball in, play the line. And then if it comes in, it's not so difficult for you to draw your hands closer to the body very quickly and negotiate the turn.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.